Our next two speakers are running for office for state Republican Party. The 1st of June, delegates that were elected at the Fayette County Convention in March, we elected 40-plus delegates and 40-plus alternates to go to the state convention. We will be given the opportunity to represent you to elect the next slate of officers for the state Republican Party. And so it is my pleasure today to be able to let you know you get to hear from two of those candidates today. And our first speaker will be David Cross. David is currently serving as the second vice chairman of the Georgia Party, and he is running to be your chairman. He is one of the leading election security advocates in Georgia, having spent the last 4 years creating and working with teams to expose the vulnerabilities and inaccuracies in Georgia's voting system. His close collaboration with Garland Favorito with Voter GA began in November 5th, 2020, right at that time of the election that we will never forget. And he has continued to this day. He successfully passed 2 election rules with the Georgia State Elections Board and collaborated with patriots to edit and strengthen the election codes of Title 21 of Georgia law. He is a certified portfolio manager and wealth advisor with U.S. Asset Management, a company he founded in 2016 after working for 25 years with the biggest firms in the financial services. His practice provides advice on a variety of investment and retirement planning. He holds a degree in finance from Auburn University and is a lifelong learner in the topics of finance and economics. And we would like to welcome to our stage Mr. David Cross. Now, David, come on up. I've already let everybody know that you've got 30 minutes, and you can speak the whole 30 minutes and no questions, or you can speak 5 minutes and let it all be questions. This floor is yours now. Awesome. And then we have asked those who are asking questions to stand up and ask a question, not give commentary on the day's events and culture, because our speaker is here to give you information about him so we can vote effectively at the state convention. Thank you, David. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've got lots of props, as you can tell. I came up here with my bag. Got a lot. There's a lot to cover, and I think rather than giving you like a pre-prepared speech, because you could watch those, I'll post them on Facebook. I'm gonna give you some comments tonight or this afternoon, this morning. It's all running together. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about why I'm running, and I want to open it up and take questions from everybody here tonight. A little higher. Okay. How's that? Okay. All right. So I'm currently the second vice chairman. I'm running for chairman for the same reason that I ran as second vice chair, election security. It was kind of interesting. In 2023, I wasn't really involved in politics. I wasn't that heavily involved in my county party. I mean, I went to some meetings. I gave some money to politicians. I was running my business. But in the years prior to 2023, my father and my father-in-law and my mom all got really sick, and they all died in a very short period of time. And it was literally to the point where I'll tell you real quick. On the day before my dad died, we found out that my mom had a brain tumor, and the doctors at Emory said, "It's nothing you can do. She's going to be gone in 8 weeks." And I said, we've got to do something. And so my mom elected to have brain surgery. She had it. She lasted for about 18 months, and she passed away after that. But it was in such rapid succession that I really didn't, spend any time grieving for my father. And when my mom passed away, there was about 6 months later where I just dove into all of the work that I was doing on election security. And I know that, that my dad was really, my dad would have been really proud about that. I know my father-in-law was. And anyway, we had a lot of death in a very short period of time. So I'm telling you that because I channeled that energy into election security. And in the spring of 2023, a friend came to me and said, hey, you should run for second vice chair of the Georgia GOP. And I said, I really don't have time for more meetings and, paying more dues and going to things. What would I get out of it? And the person who was recruiting me said, you've put so much effort and energy into election security that if you get elected, there are going to be people that, under the Gold Dome that will listen to you out of respect for the office. And I said, okay, sign me up. And so I went out and did my stump speeches, everywhere. And it was really kind of interesting because everywhere I went, like longtime people who have been involved in the party for a long time said, I love your message. You're never going to get elected. It's not going to happen for you. I was like, why? And the general message was, you haven't been washing dishes long enough. And besides, the guy you're running against, Brant Frost, he's the incumbent. He's, his dad's got all the money, and you're not going to win. And as everybody here knows, I went in and I blew it all away. All right. It was a fantastic time. President Trump was in town, and people wanted MAGA representation at the Georgia GOP. Unfortunately, after I got elected, I kind of got shut out and frozen out by the chairman. He had no interest in talking with me from the very first day. It's not something that devolved over time, just no interest from the first day. The same thing happened with Brian Pritchard, and it was kind of tragic because the two of us have got thousands of people around the state, grassroots people, that look to us, that appreciate us, and want to help support us. And I really wanted to bring that energy to the Georgia GOP. So I'm running right now also because, really for the same reason that President Trump ran in 2016. We all heard that he said, I see my country in decline. I see waste. I see money being, blown away in stupid places. I see dumb decisions being made, and I want to get involved. And so I'm running right now as chairman because I see a huge number of mistakes being made out there. What's really troubling to me is that when I think about the people that are out there that are supporting the current chairman, it's almost like the blind honeybee, all right? The worker honeybee that's inside a hive. You ever seen these videos where you see a beekeeper goes in and they take the top of the hive off, they lift the hive out, and the bees don't do anything. The bees are just, the worker bees are just stuck on, taking care of the honey, taking care of the brood, all right? Those are the worker bees, all right? You folks that are here this morning, you're not the worker bees. The worker bees is the average person who's out there that shares our values, that is busy with, taking their kids to, to soccer practice or baseball or softball and, putting food on the table, and they don't have time to come to things like this. You folks are a different kind of bee. You are the century bee. The century bees are a little bit bigger. There's only 2% of them in the hive. 98% of the hive is worker bees. 2% are sentries. They're a little bit bigger, and when they spot danger, they put out pheromones that alert the rest of the hive, and the hive goes to work, on a different objective. You folks are the sentries. It is your job to keep your head on a swivel, look around for the danger, and alert the worker bees that are out there about what's happening. And that's why you're here this morning. That's why you're spending your time. I'm the same way. I'm a century bee too. Thank you. I thought that was a good analogy. I'm trying to help out with that. So, but that's really where we are. All right, we got a lot of work to do. How many people here went to the Frost candidate roast last night? Okay, it was a roast. All right, it was a total setup. It was ridiculous. They gave me some questions, that I can't possibly answer. Josh knew the questions ahead of time. I had some spies here in the room that sent me one of the questions ahead of time, that knew that one of them was coming, and Katie was up there lying to everybody and saying, "Listen, The question about my credentials, absolutely. I got that question a week in advance. Okay, I was prepared for it. All right, and Katie got up there and said, "Oh, these are the questions we got from the from the people in the audience." That's BS. We know that. Okay, all right. So, Denise, you can be upset if you want to, but that's the truth. Listen. I'm not a liar. I tell the truth.
No one got the information from you because nobody had it.
Denise, I got the question myself. I got the question myself.
David, you shared that question with me 2 weeks before the last night.
Yes, I did. I knew it was coming. It's not a lie, Denise. Goodbye. Tell me what Josh's tell me what his shoes taste like. There's a lot of bootlickers that are out there. One of them just left the room. All right, so hey, listen, I'm trying to be fair. You folks don't understand that I am attacked every single day. All right, I'm attacked every single day by a man who is using the company credit card to charge personal items. All right, we found $479 charged 5 times to his personal gym. All right, and he came out and he said, "Oh, I'm going to reimburse the party." We haven't seen that yet. He spent $132 at Brooks Brothers for a meeting. It's on the FEC forms. It says meeting, okay? So when people want to call me out and they, I know that I've got, a rough personality sometimes. The reason is because I call it like I see it. When President Trump stepped out and ran for president, nobody liked him. He wasn't polished. He wasn't the kind of person that you would say, "Oh my gosh, that's the kind of politician I want." But he was the right man for the job. God doesn't send perfect men and perfect women. He sends men and women that are perfect for the job at the time. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple props here with you. We have got a lot of work to do. Whoops. The Democrats right now, they have got this thing called project2030.org. You can look it up, on the website, all right? And it literally says, fund year-round organizing, flip the Georgia state legislature. They are doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on Georgia. Georgia is no longer a ruby red Republican state. We've turned purple, and they are doing everything they possibly can to turn it blue. Now, I had a really great conversation with a guy named Chan Jones, who is the chairman of the, I want to say, you know what? I'm screwing up here. The 2nd District, all right? And Chan and I didn't used to get along, but we had a really wonderful conversation. And I said, "Chan, if there was one thing that we could do to change things in our rural counties, what would it be?" And he said, "Oh my gosh, David," he said, there's at least 24 rural counties that have Democrat for sheriff. But Donald Trump won the popular vote in that county. He said, "I think I could flip those for $5,000 a piece." I was like, holy cow, that's a rounding error, as far as money goes at the Georgia GOP. We could totally do that. Josh sent out this flyer across the state. It looks like a campaign flyer for him because it's got his name all over it and his face all over it. This thing costs $30,000 to send out. That's 1/3 of the cost that it would take to work on the sheriff's program. When I become chairman, we're absolutely going after those sheriff's races because in a lot of the rural counties that are out there, the sheriff sets the tone. People listen to the sheriff. If the sheriff turns Republican, we're probably going to have other elected officials turn Republican also. And in turn, we're going to see qualifying fees coming in from those races come into the Republican Party. That's a game changer. And it doesn't require a huge investment. It just requires support of the rural counties and support of a really great, of a really great idea. I mean, Chan Jones, again, he's a little bit like me. He's rough around the edges. Some people don't like him. I didn't like him when I first got to know him. But you know what? I like his idea, and I'm going to support it. 1,000%, because we can move the needle like that. Let's see. What else are we going to do? There's so much to do. One of the things I've been accused of, wanting to tear down the party, and that's not the case. I mean, if I wanted to tear down the party, why would I have a 20-page plan of all the things and all the initiatives that I want to do, right? We always hear the story about it's time to bring in young Republicans, right? All right, so I was in Jackson County a few weeks ago, and there's a husband and wife that were there, and they said their daughter really wants to get involved. She wants to participate, and she wants to go to the state convention, but they don't have the funds to pay for her. And I said, you know what? I'll sponsor her, all right? And that's part of my promise that I want to become chairman. I want to have a scholarship fund for young Republicans. It'll probably only cost about $35,000 to give $350 to 100 kids that, where they're not going to have to choose between, am I going to go on vacation with my friends, or am I going to go sit with a bunch of over 50s and over 60s at the state convention? I don't know about you, but if I was 18 years old or 20 years old, I'm going to the beach, all right? I want them to be able to do both. And, they may not, some of them are going to come and they'll get involved for a long time. Others will probably come, experience it, maybe leave from it. And a few years later, maybe when they have kids and they start thinking about these kinds of things, they're going to go, you know what, that was a really good experience. I want to be involved in that. So we want to do that. I already talked about the sheriff's program. I want to do something called the 5-star program that David Schaefer rolled out. And for some reason, the current chairman just, overlooked it. The 5-star program gives guidance and guidelines to all the counties across the state, depending upon the different sizes and population, about what it takes to be relevant and successful. You get points for, having a meeting space like this. This is beautiful. You get points for having social media interaction. You get points for doing different things. And at the end of the year, there's awards that go out. That's something else we've got to do. All right. We need to have a lobbying effort. All right. Across the state. I've been down to the Georgia Dome, I don't even know how many times. But when I go down there, and I'm down there sometimes with Charlene, I'll come across people that they'll come down there and they'll ask me, what can I do? How can I be involved? And I think a perfect outlet for that is to put together maybe 20, 25 people that want to be able to go down there and help lobby our legislators on the important legislative agendas and the different rules that we want to push. We could easily train them with videos. We could, give them sign cards and that kind of thing, or talking point cards so when they're down there, they can have relevant conversations with folks. Because right now we have one lobbyist, and he has to split his time between us and his other clients. If we had 20 or 25 people down there, we would absolutely get it done. House Bill 397 was our opportunity to get more election reform and to be able to get paper ballots, and it failed. We didn't get anything passed, as far as legislation goes this year. The chairman sent out his legislative agenda 22 days after the legislative session had started. All right? That's not leadership. You're supposed to have the legislative agenda put together months in advance. You're supposed to have conversations with the people that are going to be going down there and lobbying for it, not sending it out as an afterthought. That just doesn't work. So I've got a lot of growth plans. I mean, I've got so many growth plans, for growing this party and appreciating the grassroots and making it so that when we have events, Laura Trump comes in town, all right? It was $500 a plate just to go to the event. It was $1,000 a plate if you wanted to have your picture taken with her. That's not accessible for a lot of people. We have to have accessible events so that when if we have events that are much more reasonable, we can have 1,000 people at them. You have 1,000 people at an event, and you know what? You're not raising money off the cost of the dinner. You have sponsors that are there that say, "Hey, I want to advertise my business, to these other people that I feel like are in my tribe." Right? That's how this happens. Again, there's there's so many opportunities for growth and for what we need to do at the Georgia GOP that I can't get into them, all in. It'd take me like 3 hours to chat with you about it. But I think what I'd like to do is open up the floor. I'll take some questions. I need some water.
This is my water. Can someone get him some water? But I'll call on people here.
Yes. Yes, crossforga.com. Cross for GA or Cross for Georgia. Right now, I've got some of the bullet points that are on there. In the coming days, you're going to see a lot more detail that's going to be coming out. I've been reluctant to put it all out there because, your critics are going to try to pick it apart. But the reality is that we've got a lot of work to do.
Linda, we got two Lindas. Linda Ellis and then Linda me. All right, two Lindas.
So I was there last night. I don't know who else was there. But I don't care what side you're on, David or Josh, but I found it, I was very disappointed that Katie, that Brad Barnes, whatever his name is from Fayette County, go on and endorse Josh on stage. I don't know the rules, I'm just a little, I have no idea what the rules are, but that is just downright wrong.
Okay, no statements. We're going to do questions.
Linda, name.
David, every time, I think, for the last several years, every time I go to the Capitol, the lobby, I always run into you. You're there. Your campaign to GOP, the Georgia GOP, that is long overdue. Okay,
This is not my sign. These came from Jackson County. I thought it was wonderful.
but, and I'd like to support you and ask other people to support the Devils as well. How many times do we say donate money to the Georgia GOP? In 2024, the Freedom Index rated the Georgia Republicans in their General Assembly a score of 40 out of 100 points. That's how weak they were. In 2025, this past session, that score is expected to go down to 30 out of a potential one. This past General Assembly was a disaster. And our money goes to support that with legislation, especially here in our district. If you look at the ratings for Josh Bonner, David Jenkins, Matt Brass, Lynn Smith, Matthias, the legislators who represent us, their scores are horrible. And thank you for dodging the Georgia GOP and being willing to take a stand.
Okay, so there wasn't a question there. It was a little bit of a statement. But what I am going to tell you is that when I become chairman, one of the things that we're going to do is we are going to do an audit. We've got to figure out where the money's going to. We have to find out what's happened. That's one thing. The second thing, yeah, because here's the reason. We have to rebuild trust, truth, and transparency in the Georgia GOP right now. I mean, I talk to big donors out there. One of my friends is a really big car dealership. He's got a 9-figure, net worth. And I asked him one time. I said, "Why don't you give to the Georgia GOP?" And he said, "Because I don't trust where my money's going to go." All right, we've got to rebuild that. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that our treasurer is publishing on the website a quarterly financial report. Just the basics. We don't have to show every single little detail. All right, but I want people to see how much money's going in, how much money's going out, what are the key initiatives, what are the challenges, where do we need help, and how can you move the needle?
I'm confused.
Yes.
You were talking about our legislators, and he's talking about the corporate entity of the Georgia GOP. They don't give money to our legislators, do they?
The Georgia GOP?
Yeah.
In some cases, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They fund campaigns.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
What was the NDA that they ripped up yesterday at the, or at the candidate forum?
Oh, here we go. All right. So in order to get the candidate list, or not the candidate, the delegate list for the Georgia GOP, In the past, you had to sign like a 1.5 page NDA that said, I promise not to release the information to other people. I promise not to sell it. I promise not to use it for marketing or anything like that. And so right now, there's a trust issue between the chairman and me. He doesn't trust that I'm going to safeguard the information. All right, you heard that I'm in the investment management business. I have got multiple redundant systems for keeping my clients' information secure. I have no interest in going out there and using the Georgia GOP list for marketing. I've got plenty of business coming my way. All right, so, but what he did was he had this 9-page NDA, created that basically says, that I promise not to disparage anybody at the Georgia GOP. I promise not to say anything bad. I promise to keep, information confidential and to protect trade secrets. I mean, what's the trade secret at the Georgia GOP? Okay, and it says remedies. Liquidated damages. Liquidated damages is lawyer talk for you have pre-agreed to pay this amount if we find you in violation of it. And the pre-agreed amount is $25,000 per violation. And if I don't like it, I get to go to court in Fulton County. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to Fulton County. Fulton County doesn't treat Republicans right. Why would we choose that? Okay.
Charlene and then
Yes, ma'am.
Steve.
Yes. David, over the past, let's say, 4 years, okay? We know 2020 was a fiasco. That's when I got involved, you got involved, et cetera. But what we're thinking is that our state GOP should be in business to get Republicans elected.
Correct.
And I think, what are the statistics about, I know we're concerned in our legislature about the decreasing numbers, where we used to have an XYZ number of majority in both houses. What are those numbers now? Because they've gone down since.
Yeah, here's the thing. In the last 5 years, the numbers are diminishing. All right. When you hear the words "we returned a majority," to the state house, that is code for we didn't win any additional races. Okay, or we didn't lose enough to lose the majority. I mean, it's word salad. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to just give you the numbers and say, we won this, we lost that, we have problems, on what we're dealing with. Like one of the biggest issues we have right now is there are 5 House seats that were within a 1.5% to 2% margin. If I was a Democrat, I would go spend gobs of money in those places because that's where you're going to move the needle. If you're a Democrat, we have to stop that.
Okay, Steve.
Well, hi, David. Thank you for showing up today. I'm going to do a statement first and followed by that.
Okay.
Georgia Democrats are laser focused on holding Republicans accountable at the ballot box this year and next for all the harm they've caused hardworking Georgia families. That's on the home page of the Democrat Party at Fayette County website. So they're at war with us, the way I interpret it.
Right.
In their website, they also had a graph showing over a 30-year period. We went from 70% Republican to 30% Democrat to almost 50-50 this last election. And on their website, they say on 3 November 2026, we will become a blue state. Oh, I'm sorry, county, blue county. So I guarantee you that both the funds and all that are going to go to try to turn us. And they possibly will. All statistically, they're right. So, we're one of the few counties that swung to the left in 2024. What can the Georgia GOP do specifically for Fayette County to keep us red?
Okay, so it literally comes down to education and data. Okay, I and a team of other people built a fantastic data voter intelligence tool, where you as a user, or you can have your kids do it, or whoever, you can sign up as a user to use it. It's free, and you can pick out your neighborhood if you want to, and it will show you. This thing will put little red dots on there for anybody who's a Republican, and it ranks them between hard Republican to weak Republican. It'll put blue dots on there that show you who the Democrats are, from hard Democrats to weak Democrats. But the most important color that goes on that map is green. Green is an independent voter. An independent, just means that we don't have enough information to figure out how they vote. They don't participate in primaries. They don't participate in the election process enough for us to know how they vote, all right? But 40% of Georgia voters, 2.8 million of them, are green dots, all right? And they live in your neighborhood, they live in my neighborhood, and the way that you move the needle is you go out and you have conversations with these people. You target them, for either for mailings or postcards or drop-offs or door knocks and things like that. It's literally a ground up, movement. And we've also got to be able to get into the multifamily communities that are being built. In Gwinnett County, it's terrible. I mean, the developers there put up tons of them, and we've got to be able to reach out to those. And the other part is there's a ton of minorities that are out there that share our values. All right, they're from India, they're from Pakistan. There you go. They're black. They're everywhere, and they are. I come across some of these people, and they are rabid Trump fans, and they want to know how they can get involved. Up where I live, there's a group of 20 of them that meet every month, and they're from Pakistan and India. All right, and I get together with them, and they're like, David, tell me who to write a check to. Tell me who I can help. All right, and I facilitate that. But they want to be involved. That's how we move the needle. In fact, one quick thing about that is one of the Pakistani guys that I met back in August last year. He said, "Man, I love your message." He said, "Will you come over to my house and teach my kids how to be Republican?" All right. And he said they both have got, one's a doctor, one's an engineer, and they think I'm an idiot because I'm Republican and they're Democrats, and they don't understand it. And I said, well, part of it is indoctrination. You sent your kids to colleges that indoctrinated them that way, and we've got to stop that. But I say I'll absolutely do it.
Carolyn?
Yes. All right, so it's called georgiavip.org. And you can see me afterwards. I'll show you how to get to it, georgiavip.org.
Steve is our data guy. Carolyn?
David, I'm in District 6, North Small Fayette County, where we were with District 6. And we had a very weak candidate run last year against Elizabeth Bath, who lost with McCormick too.
Mhm.
The ones that we won. How will you work with the district chairman, because Brad Carver is running, to find a stronger candidate? Because we had Jeff Criswell, and I just felt like it was just not a good selection. How do you work with them to find stronger candidates?
Okay, so that's another initiative that's on my plate, and it's called the Accountability Committee. All right, the Accountability Committee is going to work in two areas. One is going to be in talking with existing representatives about how they're voting, and and the vast majority of them are pretty good. Okay, in fact, they're really good. But we do have some outliers, and we need to have some honest conversations with some of those folks and say, hey, we really need you to be, you signed up to carry Republican values, but you're not voting Republican values. And we're going to, and if we have to, we're going to stop you from buying an R, next time you go to qualify. That's one part, all right? The second part is going to be with candidate recruitment. Candidate recruitment literally comes from reaching out to business leaders, going to your chambers of commerce, going to the boards of, like your hospital board, your chamber board, your Boy Scout board, the different boards that are out there. That's where you find leaders that are out there that are willing to step up. I mean, when I was involved in the Gwinnett Hospital Foundation several years ago. The guy that came to me was a very good friend. He was a friend and a client, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, I need you to get involved in the Gwinnett, hospital board." And I was like, I don't have time. You've already got me involved in 3 other boards. And he said, he had the greatest wisdom I've ever heard. I said, why do you want me involved in this thing? He said, David, because busy people get things done. And that's where they're at.
And we will wrap up here.
Yes.
So you can, and David, Salleigh, we're so glad. I know that you drove home and drove back today.
Yep.
And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we get to hear from another candidate for state party. Her name is Salleigh Grubbs. And Salleigh has with over 4 decades of conservative activism and bold leadership as Cobb County GOP chairwoman, Salleigh is ready to bring her grassroots energy, strategic vision, and unwavering conservative values to the role of first vice chair of the Georgia Republican Party. Let's welcome Salleigh Grubbs to come tell us a little bit. And Salleigh, you were an add-on for our meeting, but we're glad to give you about 10 minutes to tell us what we need to know.
Okay, good morning. First of all, sorry about the creek. I wanted to tell you that I felt really at home when I got here this morning. Y'all have a great group, and Randy and Denise I met in 2021 when I first became the chair of Cobb County. They're great people, and it was good to see them this morning. How many people in here are praying people? Okay, that's kind of what I thought, everybody. So I went to the forum last night, ran home. I'm from Cobb County, live in Marietta. My son, my daughter-in-law, and my precious 3-year-old grandson, I had to pick them up at 6 this morning to take them to the airport to get on a flight to Hawaii, but they're stuck at the gate right now. So I would just ask if you would just say a quick prayer for traveling mercies for my family. I sure would appreciate it. It's my grandson's first time on an airplane. So they have a long journey ahead. So, before I speak, I pray that the Lord would just put his words in my mouth. And I said when I agreed to run for chair of Cobb that I would be his hands and feet if he would put his words in my mouth. And so that's always my prayer. So if I mess up, that's on me. But if you hear something good, it's on God. So, but I decided to run for first vice chair. I'm currently the chairwoman of the over 80 counties. So in Georgia, out of 159 counties, we have 32 that have over 80,000 in population. And so that's one of the reasons I got to know Elaine so well. And I would like to just give you a big hand for all your hard work and for being elected. I love you very much, and I've had the blessing and honor to work with Elaine as the chairwoman of the over 80 counties because the 32 counties make up about 70% of the vote in the state of Georgia. There was a question last night about working with the under 80 counties, and the good thing is that we do have under 80 counties up near me. There's a lot of personalities in the GOP. I don't know if y'all have noticed that or not. But with all the personalities, sometimes there's, you click with some people and you want to help them, and sometimes you don't. And so I always have an open ask me anything policy. So while I'm speaking, I want y'all to think of any questions that you have for me. There's, no issue with anything you want to ask me. So I'd ask that you please do that. I was kind of listening to the statistics that Dr. Patterson was talking about, and in Cobb County, we have 148 precincts. And I'm proud to report that through our efforts, when I came in as chair in 2021, it was because of the 2020 election. If y'all have heard the story about chasing the shredding truck and all that kind of stuff, that was me. With a friend of mine, we were Thelma and Louise trying to, because we thought that the FBI would come, that they would, want to examine the bits and see, validate and all that kind of stuff. But that didn't happen. Called 911, the whole 9 yards. It's actually all written about in a book that a reporter did. And it's called Finish What We Started. His name is Isaac Arnsdorf, and he started with ProPublica. He's at the WAPO now. Not that I associate much with WAPO reporters, but he actually did a good job in the book because it's all based on the precinct strategy. So I want to bring it down to the precinct strategy because that is how you save your counties, to be honest. You have got to be the ambassadors to go out there and to get your neighbors involved. And when they move into your neighborhood, take them a cake or a box of cookies and share those conservative values. So we have been very effective. There's, controversy that, in Cobb, it turned blue under my tenure, which it did not turn blue under my tenure. It started going blue in 2016, actually. And in 2020, when they stole the election, that was the nail in the coffin. We held on to the school board. So protect your school board. When I was listening to Dr. Patterson, I was thinking about some of the great things that he has to say. And Cobb County Schools is actually our largest employer. And, that's what they all go after. So when he was going down the list of, the great things about Fayette County, you're almost giving people a checklist of the things to attack. Attack your schools, attack your zoning, attack your, how much multifamily housing you have coming into play. But that's what they did to us in Cobb. It was a deliberate attack to take over the county, and that's what happened in 2020. So the good news is we have made progress. We were able to stop the MSPLOST, where they were going to add a 30-year 3% tax on. So taxing not only my son, but my grandson and his children. It's crazy. So we were able to get that stopped. So we've had some incremental wins, which has been a good thing. But as far as my position in being the over 80 chair, we did not have previous communication between the counties, and that's critical. When we saw things in elections that were happening in Cobb or Fulton or Gwinnett, because there was a lot going on in Gwinnett in 2020, when we see those things, is the same thing happening in Lowndes County, or is the same thing happening in Chatham County? So for the first time, we do have a good network of the chairs of the counties communicating with each other and being able to provide insight into what's going on with our elections, what's going on with voter rolls. And for the first time, we do have rules for our over 80 caucus, so I'll be leaving the caucus in good shape. But as far as running for first vice chair, if you look at my card on the back, I have the initiatives on the back. Number one is grassroots. I know everybody got tired of hearing that word last night, but it really is the key to everything. And then a strong Georgia GOP helps make Georgia stronger. If we don't have a strong GOP, we have a weak Georgia. As you heard when Linda was going through the statistics and things like that of the voting index, we do need to hold our legislators accountable. We need to be sure that they understand what we want to see done. Then election integrity, it goes without saying, that's a huge thing for me. Ms. Charlene's seen me down there and presenting rules before the state election board. I actually have a couple of those rules that are now incorporated into House Bill 397, if we can ever get that passed, which I'm sure we will. But there is a lot going on that I feel like we need to finish what we started. And from the time President Trump got elected, we only had about 18 months to help get things done, because then we have midterms. We're all concerned about the Ossoff election, and that needs to be our main focus. We have got to get rid of him. We have got to fire Ossoff, and we have got to hit the ground running on that. But also, it comes down into your communities as well. And so I want to be that liaison and that tie from the grassroots, from the local parties to the state party, to be sure that you get what you need to effectuate the plans that you have for your communities. Another thing is I was actually asked to be part of the nationwide election integrity program for the RNC, so I did that with Senator David Perdue. And also for Georgia, I was a statewide poll watcher for the 2024 election. In my home county of Cobb, we filled every single poll watcher position for early voting and for day of voting in Cobb County out of 148, precincts. So that was a major accomplishment. But I want to tell y'all that just because President Trump is the president doesn't mean that we can take our eye off the ball. And we have got to stay focused on the future and what has to be done. And now's not the time to disengage. Now's the time to push the ball further and push the ball harder. And so I just want to help people do that. And so I am a servant leader. I do believe in putting you all first. So any questions?
Can I pick the people? Charlene, go ahead.
How does the state party get involved in who gets to run for the Republican person who's running for governor, for Secretary of State? I mean, sometimes it feels like to the rest of us that it's preordained, somebody in the sky is picking these people, and we, the people, sure, we have to march for the Republicans, but if they're not who we think are working for us, I have a hard time voting for them. I'm not gonna vote for a Democrat, but it's hard to turn it out. How does they get selected?
So I'll be honest with you and tell you that I agree with your perception. Now, I don't know that there is a selection. I can tell you that the state party doesn't really have anything to do with selecting who runs. The state party is there to help get Republicans elected. When in 2021, as soon as I was elected, we had a special election for House District 34 when Reeves is his last name. I can't believe I forgot his first name, but that's how memorable it was. Bert Reeves, because he's one that I went and begged for calling the legislature into session to have a special session over the election, and was told no. And so I beat the doors down of the legislators for that. So I feel your pain. It's not always like who we would like to see run. In Cobb County, we had a fantastic man, Gary Chafee, step up for House District 35. And that, if it's not like a solid red district, sometimes they just won't run. And then the solid red people that run, it is like preordained. Unfortunately, what I'm going to tell you, you're not going to like, but it's the truth. The Chamber of Commerce is selecting a lot of these candidates. It has nothing to do with the party or with the county party. It has to do with the Chamber of Commerce. And then they have these PACs and they fund people to run. And I can tell you for a fact in Cobb County, that has happened more times. And then we choose a candidate that is America first, that's Georgia first, that we want to see run. But guess what? We don't have any PAC money. I mean, I've thought about myself just starting a PAC just so that we can raise the money to fund the candidates we want to see. So I highly suggest if you've got any rich friends, start a PAC and do what Governor Kemp has done, which I think is wrong, by the way, as far as banking all that money to run the campaign. So.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm wondering how difficult it is to change big pieces in Georgia. I don't know who controls these things, because in Connecticut, the party makes the slate. We make the slate, so we pick people, and then people primary, and we're out of the primaries, just like here. So you're telling me that the Chamber of Commerce has the power that ought to belong to the Democrat-Republican party?
So you're talking about a caucus system to do it by caucus, and Josh talked about that some last night. Because I have it. First thing is we have got to close the primaries. That is an absolute must. We have to close the primaries, because if we don't close the primaries, I mean, that's how Brad Raffensperger won again. And you keep hearing rumblings about what Governor Kemp's going to do. Is he going to run for the Senate or whatever? I'm concerned about what Brad Raffensperger is going to do right this minute as well. And if we close the primaries, that will help protect us. As far as choosing a slate, we don't do it that way. Right.
Anybody else? Well, let me give a little testimonial. We have so many great candidates, but I have worked with Salleigh for the last 2 years because I was a new chairman, and I didn't realize you were kind of new yourself, but had you talked to politicians before?
So I've helped work on campaigns.
Okay.
But I didn't formally come I was a member of the GOP, but it was the 2020 election that pushed me over the edge, that said, if not now, when, if not me, who?
Definitely.
So that's what got me involved.
I think a lot of us got involved then. But I know that Salleigh, being my over 80 chairman, whenever I had a question, she was prompt to answer and very gracious to do so. So we have an abundance of great people to vote for. And thank you for coming down and meeting us, because we